All right, close your eyes for a second and picture this. You're in a movie, right? A sleek, futuristic security operations center. Monitors glow everywhere, complex dashboards. Analysts are zipping through data like cyber ninjas. An alert queue of zero. Everyone's finely tuned, engaged, happy. That's the cinematic ideal we often see. Now, for many of you out there, especially if you're, steeped in the world of SAN Security 450.5, which, for those unfamiliar, is a cornerstone course on building and operating an effective SOC, the reality is often, well, a stark contrast. It's a relentless grind of endless alert queues, repetitive tasks, and tools that seem to fight against you instead of for you. It's the kind of stuff that leads to serious, soul-crushing burnout.
It's really true. The dream might be that finely tuned watch.
Yeah.
But the daily reality for many SOC analysts can feel more like a revolving door. People come in, they get overwhelmed, and they leave.
And that's exactly what we're doing a deep dive into today. Our mission isn't just to talk about the critical challenges facing SOCs, it's to equip you with insights into how continuous improvement, advanced analytics, and smart automation can truly transform operations. And crucially, elevate the job satisfaction and career longevity of security analysts. You're going to gain practical, actionable frameworks that you can apply, to make a real difference in your own environment. So let's unpack how we get from that cinematic chaos to actual cyber ninja status. Hashtag the harsh reality of the SOC and why it burns out analysts. So we started with that cinematic dream, right? The perfectly staffed, zero alert SOC with happy, engaged analysts, maybe even a few metaphorical ninja swords hang on the wall. What's the reality you typically see, in the trenches?
Well, look, in some very mature SOCs, elements of that ideal do exist.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But for many, the daily grind is far from it. We're talking about an overwhelming number of false positives that just drown out real threats, clunky tools and user interfaces that actively slow you down, endless, repetitive, mindless activity that, frankly, saps your will, and, yeah, mountains of alerts that never seem to shrink.
Wow.
Add to that a lack of empowerment, that feeling of being unable to truly fix things, maybe poor cooperation between teams, and sometimes toxic metrics that tell the long story about your value. It all adds up to what's often called a revolving door job mentality, and that leads directly to burnout.
And burnout isn't just being tired. You hear that word a lot, but what does it really look like in an SOC environment? How does it manifest for analysts day to day?
You're right. It's far more insidious than just fatigue. It shows up in really tangible ways. Things like a diminished interest in your work, persistent exhaustion that sleep just can't fix, a creeping cynicism about everything, maybe a deep sense of disillusionment, and just a frustrating lack of concentration.
Yep.
When analysts are in that state, it directly leads to poor judgments, incomplete investigations, and, well, overall inefficiency. What's worse is that constantly changing team members, because of high turnover, prevents any real cohesion. It creates this kind of snowball effect where one person burning out makes it more likely for the next.
Right.
And it's crucial to distinguish between good stress, the kind that comes from challenging yourself, learning, growth, and bad stress. Bad stress, like the perception of liking control, the constant barrage of alerts, or simply no time for improvement. That's the insidious force that drives burnout in our field.
So if this is such a systemic problem, is there a way to even conceptualize it in a broader sense beyond just people are tired? Because it feels like there's a deeper structural issue at play here.
There absolutely is, yeah. We can look to Gary Becker's economic concept of human capital, which he defined as all the knowledge, talents, skills, abilities, experience, intelligence, training, judgment, and wisdom possessed. It's an incredibly comprehensive way to look at the value a team brings. What's fascinating is how this concept was applied in a 2015 Usenix study, a human capital model for mitigating security analyst burnout. After embedding a researcher in a large SOC for 6 months, they found that burnout largely stemmed from, well, mismanaging this human capital.
So what did this study find were the core components of human capital within a SOC? What are the key factors?
The study broke it down into 4 interconnected factors: skills, empowerment, creativity, and growth. And this isn't just theory, it's a really profound insight into SOC dynamics. These factors form what's called a positive feedback loop in the engineering sense.
Okay, but positive doesn't necessarily mean good here.
Exactly. It doesn't mean good feedback, but rather an unstable accelerating system. If these factors are trending positively, you get accelerating improvement. Great. But if things start to go poorly, it can quickly turn into a vicious downward spiral. Imagine a manager, right, maybe under pressure, hires entry-level analysts who lack training. This doesn't just create a skill gap. It immediately starts to erode trust from senior analysts and management, which leads to less empowerment. When analysts can't act or be creative, they don't grow. And that initial lack of training accelerates into a full-blown crisis of confidence and burnout across the whole team. It's a snowball effect, yeah, but one that gains really devastating momentum.
That's a powerful and, frankly, a bit terrifying dynamic. Let's really break down those four crucial factors then, the ones that either fuel SSOC's success or cause it to fizzle. Starting with growth. What does genuine growth look like for an analyst?
Growth is fundamentally about increasing the intellectual capacity of analysts. It's simple, really. It's achieved through learning on the job, taking on varied incident types that challenge you, actively seeking out mentors. When analysts aren't just doing repetitive tasks but are pushed to think creatively and solve new problems, it fosters a vital sense of accomplishment. Without that opportunity for creativity and growth, stagnation and burnout become, well, pretty much inevitable.
And hand in hand with growth, we have skills. You can't really grow without acquiring new skills, can you?
Absolutely not. Periodic training of multiple types is essential. And this isn't just about formal classes, right? It includes peer-led training,
Yeah.
purple teaming exercises where you train like you fight, tabletop exercises too. The research shows that a lack of training quickly leads to a lack of confidence,
Which leads to...
which then devolves into frustration and ultimately that feeling of having no control, a direct path to burnout.
Next up, empowerment. This feels incredibly critical, especially when you think about the daily frustrations, endless alerts, limited permissions.
It truly is. Being expected to do a job and not having the ability or resources is an extremely stress-inducing situation. Anyone would feel that. Analysts need to be trusted to perform their duties. This means efficient access to endpoints, permission to see logs, the ability to enact blocking actions when necessary, and importantly, the freedom to write new threat detection analytics. When analysts are empowered, it fuels their creativity and improves morale significantly. It directly contributes to that virtuous cycle we want.
Which leads us directly to creativity. How does an analyst's creativity tie into something as practical as operational efficiency? It might seem like a disconnect.
Not at all. Creativity and operational efficiency are deeply intertwined. Look at automation, for instance. Automation removes those repetitive tasks, freeing up analysts for more interesting human-suited work, the kind that requires creative problem-solving.
Oh, okay.
But it's also a bi-directional flow. Highly skilled and creative analysts will actively find ways to make operations more efficient. It's a virtuous cycle where each feeds the other, leading to continuous improvement.
Finally, we have metrics. These are supposed to tell the story of the SOC, right? But they can be a double-edged sword, either empowering or hindering.
They absolutely are. Metrics are the critical link between analysts and management, and they should clearly convey the true value of the SOC. However, if those metrics tell the wrong story, maybe focusing only on ticket closure times or something, they can restrict funding, reduce empowerment, and inadvertently steer the human capital model right into that vicious cycle. Less budget means less training. Restricted empowerment combined with that lack of training can severely impact growth and creativity. It's a really delicate balance that management needs to get right. Hashtag building smarter defenses analytics that work.
So we're shifting gears now to building smarter defenses, and at the heart of that is the Detection Balancing Act. You've got 4 detection outcomes: true positive, true negative, false positive, and false negative. While false positives are annoying, really annoying, the false negative is, without a doubt, the most dangerous because it means you're missing an intrusion.
That's right. What's fascinating here is the inverse correlation between sensitivity, how easy it is to trigger a rule, and specificity, how many conditions have to be true for it to trigger.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Think about creating a rule to catch illegitimate new domain admins. If you alert on all log events, well, you have horrible specificity, but very high sensitivity, way too many false positives, unusable. If you make it overly specific, say, alert on new domain admin, out of hours, odd PC, and no change ticket, you might get 0 false positives, which sounds great, right?
Yes, sounds ideal.
But you risk missing legitimate changes or slightly different attack patterns, leading to those dangerous false negatives. The unavoidable reality is that a lack of perfect knowledge of your environment means a perfect rule is, well, unattainable. You're always making a trade-off.
So if there's no such thing as a perfect rule and we're always in this balancing act, how do we ever move past just making trade-offs? Is there a fundamental shift we can make? I've heard enrichment tossed around. Is that the real game changer here? Just adding more data?
Precisely. Enrichment is the key. You're adding data to increase separability, making it much easier to draw that critical line between good and evil. To produce the highest quality data for analytics, you need to follow basically 5 crucial steps.
Okay, what are they?
First, select tools that generate the most useful fields. Seems obvious, but often overlooked. Second, adjust your logging from defaults to ensure all security-relevant fields are included. Don't just stick with out of the box. Third, choose the most parsable and dependable output format, like key-value pairs over regex requiring text if possible. Makes life easier. Fourth, enrich the fields you have with more information. Pull in data from sources like virus total, reputation scores, domain categories, asset and user attributes like group membership or criticality. Context is king. And finally, step 5, now apply your analytics.
Got it.
Consider 2 DNS requests you might see. billability.com versus media.circuit.com. Without enrichment, they're just domains, right? But with enrichment, adding creation date, site rank, category, risk level, it immediately becomes clear that mediaturkey.com, created just a day ago, unranked, malicious category, high risk, is the one to investigate first. Enrichment provides that immediate context and helps you prioritize effectively. It's huge.
So once we have that rich data flowing, how do we craft truly robust analytics that go beyond simple direct matches? What are the common effective methods we should be using?
Well, the 2 most common analytic methods are matching-based rules, like direct threat intelligence lookups, IOCs and such, and pattern or metadata-based analytics. For matching, it often takes combining multiple attributes, both positive and negative features, to decrease sensitivity and reduce false positives.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A pseudo-language search like source proxy and e-user agent, Microsoft Crypto API 10.0, and not domain.microsoft.com can be incredibly effective. This rule would flag any non-Microsoft communication attempting to use a user agent typically associated with Microsoft's Crypto API. It's specific but powerful.
Okay.
And if you're working with patterns, resources like regexr.com or reject101.com are outstanding for testing regular expressions. They help you identify complex malware callback patterns, like those seen in VDAR infections, for example. We're also seeing the rise of machine learning-based analytics, which can help automate the triage of easy-to-handle alerts, freeing up analysts for more complex investigations.
That raises an important question. What are the common SIME analytic trigger conditions we should be thinking about? And how do we apply that crucial keep it simple mantra effectively to build those rules?
Good question. SIME analytic trigger conditions typically fall into categories like allowed or not allowed, using deny lists or allow lists. Thresholds detecting spikes, flatlines, or unusual frequencies in data. Field values, spotting new terms or change terms within logs, like a new executable hash, and sequence of events, looking for one event followed by another within a specific time frame.
Okay, and deny lists versus allow lists.
Right. Deny lists are like traditional antivirus. They look for known bad signatures. Useful, but limited. Allow lists are incredibly powerful. They enumerate what's known good, thereby catching unknown bad like 0 days. Think app locker, for instance. New term rules or first contact rules are fantastic because they create a kind of self-managing allow list. They sample past values and alert on anything new, like a new program hash running or a never-before-seen virus family communicating.
Interesting.
But the key principle across all these is simplicity. The best analytics are often the simplest. You want to detect the links, not the chain. Avoid overspecification that can lead to missing things or generating those false negatives we talked about. Keep it focused.
We've just discussed crafting these incredible, robust analytics. But what good are they if they're stuck in silos, right? Unique to each organization because of varying SIMs or log formats, it's been a nightmare trying to share, hasn't it? Is there finally a holy grail for sharing these critical detections?
There absolutely is, yeah. And that holy grail is Sigma. It's described as to logs, what snort is to network traffic, and Yarrow is to files. It's a pretty good summary.
Okay.
Sigma is a high-level generic language for analytics that can be converted to function with various SIMs and even tools like PowerShell. What's fascinating here is how it mitigates that SIM tribal knowledge, that deep understanding of specific SIM data sources and field names that doesn't transfer well.
Right, everyone has their own flavor.
Exactly. With Sigma, analysts can develop analytics in a generic language, and a converter handles the specifics for their environment. It uses a plain text YAML format with clear sections for metadata, including MITRE ET&CK tags, which, as many of you know, provide that common language for describing adversary tactics and techniques, log source, detection, and condition, making analytics sharing and reuse finally possible, finally practical. It even integrates with platforms like MISP for automated distribution. This really changes the game for collaborative defense. Hashtag take Tammy the alert, storm tuning, and automation.
Now, let's talk about the elephant in many SOCs. The alert storm. As you're listening, I want you to maybe assess your own SOC's current alert situation. Use a mental four-box chart. Are you in SOC hell with low-fidelity, high-volume alerts leading straight to burnout? Or maybe the ideal SOC heaven with high-fidelity, low-volume could be low-fidelity, low-volume, potentially missing things, or maybe high-fidelity, high-volume, which means good tuning but still needs better preventative controls upstream. Where do you sit?
It's a critical self-assessment for any SOC leader or analyst for that matter. Because if your alert generation rate consistently exceeds your triage rate, your alert queue will inevitably grow. It's just math.
Right.
But the immediate answer is not simply, we need more analysts. That's often the first reaction, but it's usually wrong. Instead, the priority must be to first focus on preventing attacks from even reaching your network. Stop them earlier. Then, eliminate false positives via rigorous rule tuning, clean up the noise, and finally, leverage automation to improve efficiency. Only after those strategic steps are exhausted should you consider adding more staff.
And a huge contributor to that backlog, that endless queue, is alert fatigue, a dangerous problem. It wastes time, causes unhappiness, and can even lead to analysts cherry-picking which alerts they respond to. I can almost picture the analysts slumped over their keyboard at 2 a.m., looking at yet another alert for something they know is probably benign. What does that do to someone over time, and how do we conquer it?
That image is painfully accurate for many. Alert fatigue is incredibly demoralizing and dangerous. You start to miss things. It requires a comprehensive, multi-pronged strategy for taming alerts.
Okay, break it down for us.
First, just disable alerts that are clearly unnecessary, not applicable to your environment, or just not useful. Get rid of the dead weight. Then you need to fix poorly written or low-fidelity alerts. These often stem from poorly constructed rules, maybe a lack of clear policy or insufficient context. Using enrichment, as we discussed earlier, is key here to transform them into high-value alerts. For low-priority alerts, like those for adware or perhaps crypto mining, automate their fixes if you can, or reroute them to the help desk, or consolidate them into weekly reports that can be reviewed less frequently. Don't let them clog the main queue. You should also eliminate alerts that are non-actionable, those with no clear follow-up step, or for software you don't even use. I alert on it.
Right.
For alerts that are constantly firing or high volume, the really noisy ones, you need to tune them aggressively. Add additional positive or negative conditions, find a better detection method altogether, solve the underlying issue causing the noise if possible, or if all else fails and it provides no value, just turn them off. Alerts should be infrequent and nearly always correct. That's the goal.
That makes sense.
Finally, consider an analytic strategy where you tune down from default. This means wiping all default rules from your SIEM or EDR.
Whoa, really? Wipe them all?
Yeah, sounds drastic, I know. But then you selectively choose which alerts to enable and tune before you turn them on. It's slower initially, absolutely, but it greatly reduces noise from the start and ensures every alert you receive is meaningful and actionable.
Okay, here's a counterintuitive but powerful idea you mentioned. One of the best things you can do to raise the fidelity of alerts has nothing to do with the alerts themselves at all. Tell us about that.
That's absolutely right. It sounds weird, but simply having clear policy about which activities, software, and traffic types are allowed, essentially an allow list approach for behavior, makes threat detection fidelity skyrocket.
How so?
Well, when you clearly define your known good, anything outside of that baseline stands out like a sore thumb. Concrete examples include defining approved protocols for specific network segments, like why is RDP going outbound from the user segment? Mandating administrative account usage location, maybe only allowing logins from specific hardened workstations or domain controllers, enforcing jump boxes for server access, flagging unexpected remote access help desk access software like TeamViewer if you don't use it, or even using internal firewalls to detect unauthorized internal scanning or lateral movement. These policies don't just reduce risk, they act as detection multipliers, making your existing analytics far, far more effective.
That makes so much sense. And speaking of efficiency, you've mentioned the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. 80% of effects come from 20% of causes. How does this apply to alert tuning, and what's the real strategic insight here? It's not just about volume, is it?
No, the real insight from Pareto isn't just about reducing noise. It's about strategic optimization. It tells you exactly where to focus your limited tuning time for maximum impact. The Pareto principle tells us that the bulk of noise in your SOC often comes from a relatively small portion of your machines, alerts, users, or other causes.
Okay.
If you analyze your alert fields, you'll often find that 80% of your alerts might be caused by just one source or destination IP, a single URL, one specific host name or username, or maybe one country if you're seeing geo-specific noise. By identifying these Pareto distributions, you can dramatically reduce false positives by simply excluding or tuning specifically for those noisy causes. Don't try to boil the ocean. It's about working smarter, not just harder, to get the biggest bang for your tuning buck. It also guides you to optimize processes via automation and fast lanes, prioritizing even minor improvements on high-volume tickets because those small time savings really add up.
So automation is at the heart of this, constantly feeding that virtuous cycle of the human capital model, increasing time for creativity, reducing repetitive action. Can you clarify the difference between automation and orchestration? People use those terms a lot.
Yeah, they get mixed up. Basically, automation is setting up a single task with minimal human interaction, like automatically blocking an IP address based on a threat feed.
Yeah.
One action. Orchestration, on the other hand, coordinates multiple automated systems or tasks in a sequence, allowing for complex workflows. Think step 1, then step 2, then maybe a human check, then step 3. SO, or security orchestration, automation and response tools use playbooks to achieve this orchestration.
And what should you look for in an SO tool?
Well, besides the obvious integrations, critical considerations include how it manages human-in-the-loop interventions. You need ways for humans to provide approvals or handle tricky, risky situations. Common use cases for SR include enrichment and enumeration, automating those reputation checks, threat intel lookups, sandbox analysis, gathering user and device attributes from various systems, all the info gathering. Then there's response, blocking actions like pushing proxy blocks, isolating a host on the network, locking a user account. And finally, alert and case management, automating data input into incident management systems, adding observables, ensuring all the relevant information is captured without tedious manual copy-pasting.
But you don't need expensive SOR tools to get started with automation, right? Is there a DIY approach for organizations that might not have a huge budget for these platforms?
Not at all. You definitely don't need a big SOR platform to start. Free alternatives, like IBM Node-RED, which is a flow-based programming tool, are surprisingly capable for many SOC tasks. It's visual, quite intuitive. And DIY scripting with PowerShell and Python offers immense flexibility. You can cobble together solutions from existing code or build new ones from scratch. What's even more incredible now is that ChatGPT and similar AI can quickly generate complex code, like a VirusTotal hash lookup script, with almost zero coding skill needed from you. Just prompt it correctly.
That's amazing. But are there risks?
Absolutely. You must be aware of the paradox of automation. The more efficient a system becomes through automation, the more crucial the contribution of the remaining humans becomes. Why? Because automation multiplies problems quickly if it's not carefully designed and managed. A bad automated block could take down critical services instantly. You need extreme caution with fully automated blocking, or responding automatically to sophisticated targeted attacks, where human judgment and context remain absolutely critical. A human should always be in the loop for high-risk actions. Always.
That's a powerful paradox. Automation makes humans more critical, not less. It makes me think about how other high-stakes environments manage efficiency and human judgment. Is there a parallel, for instance, to Google's site reliability engineering or SRE philosophy?
There absolutely is a direct parallel. Google's SRE concept of toil is a revelation for SOCs, I think. Toil refers to tasks that are manual, repetitive, automatable, tactical, have no enduring value, and are ON with service growth, meaning they scale linearly, getting worse as your environment grows. Think manual alert triage.
Right.
Google famously places a 50% cap on the aggregate ops work, the toil for SREs. This ensures they have dedicated time for engineering work. That's improvement, automation, proactive measures, making things better for the future. Imagine if your SOC mandated a minimum time for process improvement, for automating those repetitive tasks. Investing in automation now literally removes future work and fosters that accelerating cycle of efficiency we keep talking about. It's about being willing to take short-term hits on throughput for long-term strategic wins.
That's a fantastic way to think about it. And it's not just about big, complex automation projects, is it? You can gain efficiency in smaller, often overlooked areas in your daily workflow, those little daily annoyances.
Absolutely. That's where micro-automation comes in. These are solutions for those small annoyances that, when added up, waste significant time and cause frustration. Think form filling in browsers with plugins like autofill for repetitive data entry and ticketing systems. Simple, but saves clicks. Or Outlook quick parts for standard email templates you send all the time. Firefox, Chrome, smart keywords allow for quick lookups like typing VT hash in your address bar to search virus total instantly by modifying URLs. JavaScript for web page modification, using tools like GreaseMonkey or TamperMonkey offers ultimate browser flexibility. Imagine automatically parsing an IP address on a web page and adding buttons to look it up in your favorite tools.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and even Windows Automation with AutoIt can automate graphical user interfaces for legacy applications that lack APIs. The core message here is, if there's part of your job you hate because it's repetitive and manual, take initiative to fix it. Don't deny yourself the right tools or scripts for the job, no matter how small the task seems. Those small wins add up. Hashtag tag action, decisive action, containment, and continuous growth.
Okay, so you've triaged, you've investigated, and now you have a confirmed true positive. You know there's an intrusion. What's the crucial next step? Containment. Stopping the intrusion in its tracks before it spreads or does more damage.
Containment is indeed critical, and often very time-sensitive. It requires a thorough understanding of the tools at your disposal, first off. Knowing when to choose between host-based versus network-based strategies and determining the best option given the specific asset and the nature of the intrusion. A common complaint we hear, going back to empowerment, is that analysts are not empowered to respond, which severely hampers efficient incident response. Waiting hours for approval can be disastrous.
So how do you build that trust?
Building trust with management and other teams, like network or server teams, is paramount to gaining that empowerment. Strategies include starting slowly, maybe giving containment power only to senior analysts first, proving out capabilities with detect-only mode on automation before switching to active blocking, implementing 4 eyes rules for critical actions, requiring a second analyst to approve, running mandatory historical record checks before enforcement to avoid impacting legitimate business operations. You don't want to block the CEO's machine by mistake. And meticulously documenting the cost of poor process, showing how delays cause damage or increase workload to demonstrate the value of swift, analyst-driven action.
And when it comes to targeted attacks, sophisticated adversaries, you can't just react blindly with a network block, can you? You need a more strategic containment plan across all layers of defense. What does that look like?
Correct. For targeted attacks, it's vital to carefully and quickly scope the intrusion before reacting, if possible. Understand the extent of the compromise. You need to pull threads to understand the attack's origin and intended path, all while preserving volatile evidence like memory. Enable extra data collection on affected assets if you can. Plan synchronized actions like password resets and IOC blocking across multiple systems at once. And be extra careful to preserve your OPSEC, that's your operational security. Maybe even switch communication channels if you suspect the adversary is reading your email.
Okay, then what are the actual containment options layer by layer?
Right. When ready to act, consider the network stack. Physical isolation is the most basic, physically unplugging a device. This requires the ability to find and unplug a device quickly. You need good IP to physical location mapping, switch knowledge, physical access procedures. Crucially, do not shut it down if you want forensics. Instead, hibernate it if necessary to preserve memory. At the link layer, MCI address, you could disable a switch port or use isolated VLANs. This is effective locally, but is maximally disrupting and might be circumvented by mobile devices jumping networks.
What about layer 3 and 4 containment options, IP addresses and ports?
At layer 3 IP, you're looking at cutting off communication at a broader network level. You can use firewall modifications for inbound or outbound blocking, router access control lists, ACLs, or null routing to black hole traffic, essentially making malicious C2 traffic vanish. For our analysts out there, imagine the surgical precision of a PowerShell-based host firewall rule, like blocking that suspicious outbound port 4444 only for the specific malicious executable on a compromised host rather than blocking the port for the entire subnet. Much less disruptive.
Layer 4, protocol, court, involves blocking specific unusual port numbers like 4444 or 6667 via firewalls or router ACLs. Common ports like 80 or 443 usually can't be blocked entirely without major disruption, so host-based controls are often more surgical here. And what about using DNS for blocking? That seems like a powerful leverage point, hitting things before the connection even starts.
DNS-based blocking, often done with response policy zones or DNS firewalls, is incredibly effective. It effectively lies to the client in the DNS response to redirect or stop a connection from ever happening. Its two main uses are blocking queries to a known bad domain, e.g. badsite.com. DNS query returns 0.0.0.0 or a single IP, or blocking all DNS responses that contain a known bad IP address.
Oh, interesting. So you can block based on the IP in the answer.
Exactly. This is particularly effective against things like dynamic DNS sites, like .dns.org, which attackers often abuse because the IPs change constantly. You can block them via parent domain wildcards in the RKZ. Very useful. For email-based attacks, modern SMTP servers or gateways offer flexibility to block based on IP of sender, domain, sender address, header details, attachment content, etc. Possible actions range from moving to junk to blocking completely, redirecting suspect emails to the security team for analysis, or even dynamic delivery, which delivers the email body but replaces malicious attachments with placeholders while they're scanned more deeply in the background.
Finally, what other tools do we have in our arsenal for comprehensive blocking, maybe closer to the application or endpoint?
Sure. Proxies, intrusion prevention systems, IPS, next-gen firewalls, and web application firewalls, WAF, are all crucial for filtering traffic at various points, often based on signatures or application awareness. For host-based blocking, endpoint protection platforms, EPPDR, offer robust capabilities, quarantining files, stopping processes, isolating hosts. As do application control solutions like AppLocker or Windows Defender Attack Surface Reduction, ASR rules, which prevent unauthorized software from running in the first place. You can even modify the local hosts file on individual machines as a quick and dirty way to deny DNS resolution for specific malicious domains if other controls aren't available. It's really about layering your defenses effectively, leveraging the right tool at the right layer to achieve containment quickly and precisely.
This deep dive has covered a huge amount of technical ground, obviously. But as you highlighted earlier with the human capital model, it's just as important to develop the so-called soft skills and foster continuous growth. What resources and strategies can help you, our listener, on that journey of mastery? It's not just about the tech, right?
Indeed. Not at all. For continuous growth, attend conferences like Black Hat or DEF CON for the broader perspective. Get the pulse of the industry. And definitely check out regional events like Security B-Sides or SAN Summits to connect with your local community. Networking is key. Participate in online CPF competitions, capture the flag events like the SAN Huddy Hack Challenge, Try Hack Me, or Hack the Box. They're fantastic because they expose you to unique attacker methods and practical challenges in a safe, hands-on environment. Both Jeopardy style and team versus team are great.
What about daily learning?
Listen to podcasts like the Daily SANS Internet Storm Center podcast for quick news updates, or the SANS Blueprint podcast for longer, blue team-focused interviews and insights. Build a personal home lab, maybe a quiet refurb desktop server with VMware ESXi, plenty of RAM and storage. DIY business networking with pfSense or Ubiquiti gear, smart switches. It gives you a place for hands-on, low-risk practice with real tools and even real malware samples. You can get packet captures, PC cappies that let you see exactly what's happening on the network during an attack.
And those soft skills, communication, presenting.
Crucial. Consider Toastmasters International for public speaking practice. Presenting your findings clearly is vital. Also, look into SANS courses like SEC 402 for cybersecurity writing and SEC 403 for presentation skills, specifically tailored for our field.
So what does this all mean for the 10,000-hour rule we hear about? How can you, our listener, apply that insight to truly developing mastery in cybersecurity?
That's a great question, and it's a common misconception. Anders Ericsson, who did the original research, clarified that Malcolm Gladwell kind of misinterpreted his 10,000-hour rule. It's not just about the raw hours, but about deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice.
Yeah. This involves 4 key components. First, having specific goals for each practice session. What exactly are you trying to improve? Second, having intensely focused sessions without distraction. Put the phone away. Third, getting immediate feedback on your performance. Did you succeed? What did you miss? And fourth, frequently being pushed outside the comfort zone to truly stretch your abilities. You want to operate at the edge of your capability to maximize learning.
How does that apply to InfoSec?
For information security, this means using resources like malware-traffic-analysis.net, which has tons of real PCKP samples and associated challenges with answers. By repeatedly analyzing real-world scenarios, trying to figure them out, getting that immediate feedback by checking the answers, and pushing yourself to identify new patterns or techniques, you can rapidly develop mastery and accelerate your skill acquisition far beyond just logging passive hours, watching videos, or reading books. It's active engagement. Hashtag outro jate.
Wow. What an incredible journey we've taken in this deep dive today. We started by contrasting that cinematic ideal of a SOC with the often harsh, burnout-inducing reality. We then explored the profound implications of the human capital model, revealing how a SOC can enter that vicious or hopefully a virtuous cycle. We then unpacked how to build smarter defenses through high-fidelity analytics and robust automation strategies. And finally, how to take decisive action through layered incident containment. It's been a lot.
It has. And it's clear that a career on the blue team can be Honestly, even more exciting and engaging than the red team work that often gets all the attention. It's intellectually challenging in different ways. By applying these principles, focusing on continuous improvement, leveraging powerful analytics and smart automation, and ensuring you and your team are empowered, you can truly foster that virtuous cycle of learning and growth. You can transform your day-to-day role into something far more rewarding and sustainable.
And here's a powerful thought to leave you with. We began by painting a cinematic ideal. What we've explored today isn't just about fixing problems, it's about writing a new script for the SOC, one where the alerts are tamed, the analysts are empowered, and the daily grind transforms into a truly heroic journey of continuous improvement. By continuously improving your processes and leveraging automation, you're not just solving today's problems, you're actively removing future work, freeing yourself and your team to tackle new, stimulating challenges, and build a truly enduring and satisfying career in cybersecurity. Go forth, be deliberate, and make your SOC the one they should write movies about.